Jackson Cole, welcome to the Single Track Podcast.
Hey, how's it going? Thanks, Finn.
So we were just talking offline at the time of this recording. I think Dakota Jones is leading the Hard Rock 100 mile at mile 58. And the reason I bring that up is because you're wearing a Hard Rock shirt. And we were just saying with Francois and Killian in the race, this could be the greatest upset of the century, maybe.
Could be.
If he can hold it off. Although he's a super talented and maybe underappreciated runner on the American scene in his own right.
Yeah. Yeah, and he knows that course so well. That's his home mountain. Yeah. Mountain range.
Never bet against sentimental value and people that are quote unquote defending their homeland.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, cool, man. It's great to have you on the podcast. We are here today to talk about Speedgoat, which you're getting ready for in about a week. I think we'll come in hot on this interview. You have an interesting description on your Instagram profile. You say, "I just want to drink beer and train like an animal."
Yeah, totally.
So maybe explain that to the audience a little further, because that's awesome.
Yeah, so it's so originally I'm from New Zealand, and they have this this guy, Rod Dixon, that's his quote. And he was a famous middle distance marathoner runner from New Zealand back in the 70s and 80s. He has won bronze medal at the Munich Olympics. And then he won the New York City Marathon. He has this crazy range. But yeah, his quote, "I just want to drink beer and train like an animal." And I've always, ever since I got into running and reading about guys like Rod Dixon, John Walker, legends of New Zealand middle distance running. And I've always aspired to that's my mentality. I love beer, drink beer every day for sure. And then just wake up in the morning and just to crush it. Yeah, it's cool.
That's awesome, man. Well, a little bit more on your background. You went to Adams State, and I think when a lot of people think Adams State, they think Joe V. Hill. They think, the shout out that school got in Born to Run, if you're a trail running fan.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It sounds like you ran there for a bit in college. Can you talk about that experience, and then maybe what then encouraged you, motivated you to get into trails?
Yeah, totally. I ran Adams State from 2014 to about 2017, and just walked onto the program there, made the time trial, and was super stoked about that because I wasn't a great high school runner. But they really, I improved a lot in a couple of years. But I think my biggest issue was just overtraining, injury prevention. I had a chronic Achilles tendonitis for about 9 months my junior year, and just kind of lost a love for running and called it quits. But the cool thing about Adams State is that it's in the San Luis Valley, which is surrounded by the Sangre de Cristo Mountains and the San Juans on either side. So it was pretty quick that I found the trails, and also rock climbing some of the 14ers here. It was a pretty natural progression for me, and trail running something I'd always thought I would get into, but it just happened a little bit quicker than I had maybe anticipated going into college. And all my teammates are really supportive, and I'm glad that it happened when it did. And it was kind of a pivotal time in my life. It was 2021, and you're always trying to find something to hold on to, and running seemed like it was I was sort of losing the love for it, and trail running was something that I found right after that. And so, super. Now it's it's the only thing I want to do. I would never run a road marathon, but I'd definitely run Hard Rock or UTMB or something like that. Yeah.
And if you had to put a label on your running right now, would you say that you're more active in the formal events and racing scene, or do you see yourself as somebody that's going at it alone in that FKT scene?
Yeah, I think that's where I was sort of coming from for the past 3 or 4 years. I think I've been focusing more on the FKT scene. I really like the idea of finding an awesome route with a lot of scrambling, and then there's a lot of route finding involved. You could never host a race in an area like the Sangre de Cristo Mountains because it's all wilderness, and the terrain can be really intense. So, I like the FKT for that side of it. It's like more exploring, testing yourself in the mountains. But I'd say in the last like year or so, I've been more focused on racing. Seems to be what excites me a bit more. I think the whole FKT scene has kind of taken a bit of a shift in the last year, and I'm maybe not as excited about that, but I'm really excited about the direction that trail running and trail racing is going. So I thought I'd jump more into some races this year.
I can't let that go because it's a hot topic in our sport right now. What are some of the issues you take with the FKT scene right now?
I just don't know if it's like my biggest peeve is that there's some river trail that's 10 miles long and now that's an FKT. I think that when I was getting into it in 2019, 2018, it was like this, the only FKTs were these really classic routes, like up and down the Grand Teton and the Grand Canyon. And then ever since the website was created, it's created a lot of like dilution in the, it's like, it doesn't mean anything to have an FKT anymore, where I feel like it did earlier on. So, I mean, in a way it's really cool because it's getting like a bunch of people involved, but yeah, I'm no expert. I don't know how to like go around that, but hopefully Outside does some cool things in the future. I'm sure they have like a bunch of stuff in the pipeline, but yeah, currently it's like just doesn't excite me as much as it did earlier. And maybe part of that is just like 26 and I'm starting to like handle training for trails a little bit more now, so I can like see myself doing well in some races. But yeah, I don't know.
Hey, I think you hit the nail on the head. I think it's probably the most important question on the FKT scene right now is like, where do you draw the line on what's allowed to be created?
I mean, they have guidelines. It's like, I think it has to be like, I might be getting this wrong, but it's like, it has to have at least 500 feet of gain and 5 or 6 miles long, but that leaves a lot of room for interpretation. And you just get these random, I don't know. Yeah. I don't want to get too like opinionated.
I know, but I know, but this is super fascinating. And sometimes we go on tangents. I'll say one last thing. I think it's interesting because you think about the internet and how that's taken down a lot of barriers for creation. Like a lot of things are permissionless now. Like I can start a podcast. The same thing is starting to hit the FKT scene. Anybody can create an FKT just building a route on Strava and stuff like that. So, which I mean, and
I think it's really cool, but it's just not the same. Like it's not as classic or competitive anymore. So
no, I think I'm with
different.
you. Yeah. Well, cool. We should get to Speedgoat. I'm curious. This is obviously a staple race in the American scene. It's Carl Meltzer's creation. He's got household name recognition in the ultra world. But what draws you to this race? What makes you want to step on the start line and compete and just be there?
I'd say there's two things that I find really unique about Speedgoat, and that's the course that it's on. It's so much vertical, which is, I think maybe only the Rut has more vert, or maybe it's equal. But that's the big thing for me, is that I think I can do well on a course like that. And then the competition side of things as well. Like it'll be really cool to line up with some guys that I haven't raced before, or that I have raced before, but have totally kicked my butt. So, I'm just really excited about the competition and the course. Yeah, it's classic. It's in such a cool part of the country as well. Sure, you can attest to that.
You've been here before. Oh yeah, I mean it's my backyard, but you've been here before, right? Like you were here 3 years ago.
Yeah, totally.
So what are you taking? What are you taking from that experience? What are you doing differently this time around?
A lot of things. I mean, I'm just like a completely different runner than I was 3 years ago. I think that I remember getting like some sort of I used to have a philosophy of like not really eating or drinking water, and that sort of. I took that mentality into races as well. And then Speedgoat was really hot. And I remember getting just like absurdly dehydrated and had like some hyponatremia at the end, like throwing up. And it's like laying on the side of the trail. So it was really gnarly. But I think I'm going to have my girlfriend out, and she'll be like maybe handing me a bottle, have like electrolyte mix, and then just having a lot of races under my belt since then as well, I think will help a lot. But yeah, I don't even remember the course that much because it was such a blur. So it'll kind of be nice. It kind of feels like I'm going for the first time again.
Cool.
Yeah.
What are expectations for the race? Like, has training been pretty smooth? And I guess I should ask first, like, is this a race that you're peaking for, or is this a race that's part of a bigger plan?
No, I'll be peaking. Kind of peaking for this race. I think that training's gone really well since like December. I feel like since moving to Flagstaff, it's been like a really positive experience. Like I've been able to train year round in the Grand Canyon and down in Sedona in the winter, where in Colorado that was never really an option. So I feel a lot fitter this year. I don't think I've had like last couple of years I've put in like these like huge like 2-month training blocks, but then with like nothing really prior, and then I'm super burnt out afterwards. So this year has been kind of like no particular week has been crazy, but I've had really consistent training since December. So I feel really fit, and I think that I think I'd hope to run in like the mid like 5-hour 30 range, something like that. I think would be a good goal for me. I'd like to be in the top 3 as well. So I don't know if, it looks like it's going to be really competitive, super fast course, or super fast competition. So, I think top 3 would be my goal. Yeah.
Well, it's funny you mentioned Flagstaff, and if you're running in the 5:30s, which would be awesome, I think that puts you right in contention for podium. You mentioned Flagstaff. I just had a guy on this same series to interview. His name's Joey DeFeo, who ran at NAU. Mine, and I think he's going to be interesting. And then I'm not interviewing him, but Ryan Raff as well. So there's all sorts of people that like can come out of the woolworks and potentially put up great performances. Like I think it's going to be a deeper field than people realize. Plus it's going to be a UTMB event. So I'm really excited. Yeah,
some names that they have kind of now that it's not on Ultra Sign Up, it's hard to see exactly who the main field is going to be. But just scrolling through the list, it was like, oh, yeah, it's going to be fast and really competitive. And there are definitely names that I've scrolled over that I don't even know are racing. So
yeah. Well, last question I have for you. I'm curious, what are you using for gear on race day? Like, do you have any shoe sponsors or pack sponsors, anything like that?
Yeah. I'm sponsored by La Sportiva. So I'll be wearing the La Sportiva Cyclone. It's their like trail racing shoe with the BOA technology. Okay. I wore that 3 weeks ago for a race, and it worked really well. And then other than that, just your typical running attire. Just got like a nice La Sportiva top, and I really like Janji shorts. So I'm going to be wearing those. Yeah.
Cool. Well, Jackson, it's been great to get to know you. Stoked to follow your race next weekend.
Yeah, totally. Thanks
for adding to the entertainment at the front of the pack. And we'll make sure to link to all your social media in the show notes. Sweet. Is there anything you want to leave the audience with before we go?
Go Dakota Jones.
I know, right? Yeah. Seriously. That's a good way to bookend it.
Yeah, sorry.
Awesome. Cool. Great chatting.
Bye.